Now this is part two of me getting shot and coming home. As I mentioned, I was sent back to our battalion area, and I was having the dressings changed by our medics. The headquarters had got a certificate sent to them from the 173rd Airborne for the Purple Heart, which they gave to me, and our guys came back in, I think about a week later, and they had their normal jokes about the tree should have got the Purple Heart. It took the, it got shot the worst. It was pretty normal sort of joking that we'd done with each other. And I think it was about 10 days after the actual shooting that I had the stitches taken out by our medic, and the wound was pretty much healed. Naturally, you see the stitch marks, etc., but it was, they do a fantastic job, those doctors. Our guys were sent out again probably about a week and a half later on another operation. I didn't go. I thought I may have done a tail patrol, one or two tail patrols, which is a tactical area of responsibility around our area, but I probably didn't, because another American unit would have taken over and looking after our joint. I'd also made it well known that if I was wounded or anything like that, I didn't want anything sent home. They told me that your next of kin had to be notified, and I said, well, make sure you tell him that it's not serious, which they assured me they would, and I explained to them that, mainly because of Mum, I wanted it done that way. Brian did tell me later that he had been notified and that it wasn't serious, so he kept it to himself. This was around the end of March, right at the end of March. I was sent up to the headquarters with all my gear, and there's a group of blokes there, 8 or 10 walking wounded blokes, and we were taken out and put on a C-130 Hercules aeroplane to come home. I remember there were 4 stretcher wounded on the plane, 2 on the bottom bunks and 2 on top bunks at the back of the plane, and there was other cargo up the centre of the plane, and us walking wounded guys, it was probably 8 or 10 or something, we sat along the side of the plane, and so I sat alongside. He was one of the rifle companies. They told us, we had to look after. They told us which bloke. We had to look after a bloke if the plane went down in the ocean or something like that. But I mean, if the plane went down the ocean, well, who knows? So not much point in talking on that. we flew up to Saigon. And I think we picked up a couple more wounded blokes then, probably more cargo, I'm not sure, but we flew then to Malacca, a British air base in Malaya, and I'd made it up with this bloke, and I can't remember his name now, but because I only spent 3 days with him in total. But he'd been wounded the same day as I was, and he'd got a Purple Heart as well. And he was telling me that on the flight across to Malaya, that he was really scared when he got hit, because the bullet had gone in his mouth, and he obviously had his mouth open, but it had come out under his jaw and into his shoulder and out under his shoulder blade, and went right through and didn't hit a bone. But it paralysed him for a few minutes, and he said he was terrified because he could hear the blokes looking for him and calling out for him, and he couldn't talk or move to let them know where he was, and he was frightened they'd leave him there, which they wouldn't have, but that was his thoughts at the time. Anyway, obviously one of them found him, and he would have went through the same deal as I did. He'd have been flown to a MASH unit, probably in a plane. Chopper might have landed or something to pick him up in a clearing. He wouldn't have been winched up, wounded the way he was. But he was treated at the MASH unit and then sent to the field hospital at Benoit, the same as I was too. I don't know whether I mentioned them giving me the certificates at our headquarters, etc. I think I did. But anyway, they gave me a certificate, as you get with all medals and citations and whatever. And each with me special papers and stuff. Wayne knows where that is. When we got to Malaya, at the British Air Base, we were allowed to go out and, up to their canteen and have a couple of beers, which we did. Then the next morning we flew across to the Cocos Islands that were owned by the Clooney's Ross family at the time. And I remember the name of the owners because one of our officers in D Company, when I first went into D Company, 1 battalion, was one of the Clooney's Ross family. We refueled the plane there, I'm pretty sure, and then we flew on to Perth. Now, the bloke in charge of us said that if we had any, relations and whatever in Perth, you could go home for the night, but you had to be back at 8 o'clock the next morning. And the guy I was with, his parents met the plane. He came from Perth, and they met the plane, and the neighbours, next door neighbours, were there too. And they said, why don't you come home and stay with us? And I told him I'd find out if I was allowed, which I did. And the boss said, this officer said, yeah, no worries, as long as you're both back by 8 o'clock tomorrow. And we went home and to his place, and he was a top bloke, fantastic bloke to talk to and that. And he was out of one of the rifle companies. I didn't know him beforehand or anything, but I think we had a few beers, and I know we had a big meal, and the neighbours and that were all there. And then it was fairly late in the night. The daughter of the neighbours asked me if I'd like to see Perth. And I said yes, I would, because I hadn't been to Perth and I'd like to go and have a look. And I also wanted to let this bloke have a bit of private time with his family, because we'd been together sort of all the time, and it was a chance for me to let him be with them on his own. Anyway, she drove me around Perth for a couple of hours. Perth was nothing like it would be now. I mean, I'm going back before the yacht race and whatever. It's like a big country town. I really liked it. And we finished up parked near the Swan River. But anyway, while we were talking that day, she found out that I had a pistol on me, a Browning 9mm automatic, that Yank in the next gun pit to me at Benoit had given me a week after we got there, and I'd used it the whole time over there, and I was going to bring it home, sneak it home with me. This girl found out I had it, and she got really upset and cried and whatever, and begged me to throw it in the river. So I did. I'm a bit sorry I did, but anyway, I did. It doesn't matter now anyway. We went back home, and the following day we went back to the airbase at Perth and flew across to Richmond. And when we got to Richmond, it was just straight off the plane. The guys in the stretchers were put in ambulances and whatever and taken away, but us walking blokes were just put on a truck and taken out to South Head at Watson's Bay, the army base out there. And we were paid and given leave passes. The stupid part about it was that this bloke, this mate of mine that I'd been with on the trip back, he had to catch a train the next day back to Perth. Now, I think it was about a 3-day trip. It might have been 2, but I'm fairly sure it was a 3-day train trip back to Perth. Yet we'd only flown across. Like, I couldn't understand why they couldn't leave him in Perth, but anyway, I wasn't in charge of the setup, so I suppose they have to follow rules or something, I don't know. But what I did was go down to Central Station and got on the first train to Newcastle. I got off at Broadmeadow, and I remember walking down the road with my kit bag on my shoulder, and I saw the sign Hamilton, and I just kept walking, and I came to Beaumont Street. I remembered Beaumont Street, and that Loris and Lloyd lived one street off there. I didn't remember the name of the street at the time, but Loris has told me since it was Bennett Street. But anyway, I crossed over, I followed Beaumont Street down, crossed over, turned down to the left and crossed over that Bennett Street and kept walking. And I came out around near the Sunnyside area there. I'd never been to the Sunnyside, but I knew where it was, and I probably might have walked past there with Mum then when I was sitting on the train to go over. I don't know. But anyway, I knew that if I turned to the right there and followed up, I'd come to Georgetown, which I did. And now, as soon as I come up into Georgetown, I saw Moat Street, and I turned to the right and walked down to 40 Moat Street. And I walked up on the veranda, there's a glass door at the front, and I knocked on the door. I heard this heavy walking, and I could see Dad's outline with the light behind him coming down the hall. And he opened the door, and as soon as he saw me standing there, he sort of went, ooh, and closed the door again. I think he might have thought I was the ghost of old Pat Burke who broke his neck, come back or something. Anyway, I heard him call out, I just can't guess who's out there. And I think Johnny and Jim were there at the time, but I heard Mum say, I bet it's Pat. Anyway, he opened the door again, and I said, can I come in? Yeah. Of course, I went in, and I think Mum rang everybody in the family that night, and we had a feed and whatever. I can't really remember, a cup of coffee or a snack of some sort, and until late into the night, and then went to bed. And I know Jim and Johnny took off early the following morning to go to work with the concrete, and Billy called in, just walked in and said good day, and he told me to come up, I think it was a couple of days later or something, to have tea with him. But I'll break it off there, and then the rest can go on another story.